Setting the Sony a7 IV up for real estate photography. I'm a real estate photographer and I've been using the Sony a7 IV for almost 2 years, and I'm going to show you my exact settings that you may consider utilizing on your next photography shoot. I'll be touching on a lot of points here. While there are many features in this camera, I won't be going over all of them. To capture real estate photos, you don't have to be overly creative. Make sure your tripod is level and start snapping. First things first, we need to turn the camera on. Once your camera is turned on, we hit the menu button. We go into the red icon with the camera and go on number 1, which is image quality. If we look down the left hand side of the screen, we're in the shooting mode, which is the red square with the camera icon. Click on number 1, which is image quality, and we're going down to image quality settings. And here we'll choose RAW. RAW files are about 10 times the size of JPEGs, but I still use RAW because it gives me most flexibility in post-production, allowing me to recover any highlights or increase any shadows. That's why I choose to shoot RAW. Now we go down to the aspect ratio and I keep this at 3:2. This tends to be an industry standard and it allows you to get the most megapixels out of your camera. From there, we're still in the shooting menu and we're going down to folder 6, which is drive mode. We click across to drive mode, we choose our continuous brackets. I choose to use a 5 bracket image at 2 stops apart, which allows me to go 4 stops under, 2 stops under, 0, 2 stops over, 4 stops over. I may not use the entire 5 photos, but again, it gives me most flexibility in post-production. Now we'll stay in folder 6 and go down to bracket settings, and this is where you'll find your self-timer. It's one of the most common questions that I get. How do I set the self-timer? Here it is, it's under bracket settings. Click on the self-timer. You can either turn it off, have 2, 5 or 10 seconds. I use 2 seconds because it allows me to press the shutter, step away from the tripod, let it level out and take the 5 photos. And from there I go to my bracket order and it's at -, 0 and plus. In the shooting mode we'll go down to folder 8 and this is where you'll find image stabilization. Move across onto steady shot and turn it off. Believe it or not, if you have image stabilization on the tripod while it's doing its continuous brackets, you may run into some problems. Then go down to folder 10 and we'll go into our grid line display. I turn it on, go down to the grid line type, and I have the rule of thirds grid. Even though I have a level on my camera screen and a bubble on my tripod, I will still use the rule of thirds to make sure my verticals are straight and it helps me compose my photos. So from here, we go down from the shooting mode to the exposure and color tab. We'll click on exposure, which will take us to the ISO. And for ISO, I will typically shoot at 100, but in a dark environment, if I'm in a rush, I'll crank that up to 400 if I have to. Now I could do a complete video on ISO value, and it's a hugely debatable topic, but if you're on a tripod, shoot at 100, but if you're in a rush and you're taking 50 photos at a property and you've got multiple shoots a day and you need to speed up that shutter speed, crank it up to 400, you won't notice the difference. In this same tab, we're going down to the white balance and I shoot auto white balance. Cameras are that good these days. It's in a RAW format anyway, so I have no trouble with white balance in post. Now down to folder number 6 and we go to color tone. Now in the same folder, I click down to number 6. I click across it, make my creative look standard. I go down to the picture profile and turn that off. I keep the picture profile off because I don't want any creative looks on my image. I want to be able to work with it in post and get a certain look that I want. So just to go over a few of those settings again, I'm going to hit my FN button and these are my main settings. I've got my continuous brackets at 5 images at 2 stops apart, auto white balance, my picture profile is off, my steady shot is off, and there's just 2 more things to do. We need to set our f-stop to f8, and we do that by scrolling on this top wheel and go up to f8, and that tends to be the sharpest point of the majority of lenses out there. Then the last thing we do is turn our top dial to aperture priority. Now by putting this in A, it does exactly what it says it will. It prioritizes our aperture of f8 while maintaining ISO values of 100, and then it adjusts our shutter speeds to give us different exposures throughout the brackets. If you'd like to see me use the Sony a7 IV with these exact settings, click this link right here. Cheers.